Shalom. I'm Elder Isaac Hill, Restores the Truth Ministries, and thank you for tuning in to our channel. Last time we began doing a series, a first part of a series, in answering the question, why are you still a Christian? And why are you using the name Jesus? And to answer those questions, we began by using even the words of the Messiah, the Mashiach, himself in John or Yochanan chapter 5, around verse 43. Because to answer those questions, we want to look at what the scriptures really say, not what religion says, but what the scripture says, and specifically what the Messiah is saying himself. Because after all, our emunah, our belief is based upon the words of Yahushua, the words of the Messiah himself. And so last time we looked at, first of all, what Moshe said in the book of Devarim or the book of Deuteronomy, regarding this Navi, this particular prophet or this particular Mashiach would have to fulfill scripture. And we looked at in Devarim chapter 18, verses 15 through 18, that he has to be like unto Moshe. So we identified that as he had to be an Israelite. Number two, we also looked at that in order to be like Moshe, he had to receive the words of Yahuwah, the words of the Father, directly from the Father himself. Okay, just like Moshe. Okay, so we established that, and then also we established that his name cannot be Jesus, because it's a historical fact that the name or the letter J is roughly 400 to 500 years old. And so around the 15th or 16th century, when that letter became known in the English language. And so therefore we wanted to prove that to you guys and to show that, so his name can't be Jesus. And he had to fulfill what Moshe said the Mashiach had to be. He had to be an Israelite, and he had to receive instructions directly from Yahuwah. Now we're going to continue in Yochanan chapter 5, and this time we're going to pick up in verse 44. In verse 44, Yochanan chapter 5, verse 44. Now I'm reading from the ISR, and it says, this is Yahushua speaking. How are you able to believe when you are receiving esteem from one another? And the esteem that is from the only Elohim you do not seek. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There's one who accuses you, Moshe, in whom you have set your expectation. For if you believe Moshe, you would have believed me, since he wrote about me. Verse 47, but if you do not believe his writings, how shall you believe my words? Now let's kind of go through this verse by verse and see what the Messiah, what the Mashiach is saying here. So firstly, in verse 44, I'm going to try to use some modern terms or so forth to kind of break this down. So the Mashiach is actually saying that we can't fully embrace him for who he is or for what his purpose is, because we are so busy esteeming ourselves. Now, how can I say that? In general, Christians get more benefit out of having a replacement mindset. Now, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. When you have a replacement mindset, you have itching ears and you have emotions that needs to be fed. Okay? And so what that means is I get more satisfaction out of going to church. I get more satisfaction out of a Sunday gathering. I get more satisfaction out of having or using the term grace, and that's another subject in itself. And I get more satisfaction claiming the blood of the Messiah and actually using the term cross, the crucifixion. So those things are itching ears to me. Those things satisfies my itching ears. Those things are emotional to me. It feeds my emotion. And what that does, these are feel-good justifications of Scripture on why we should follow another path than the path of the Torah, which has already been laid. And so those things are replacement teachings, replacement emotions, replacing uh, uh, teachings, and so forth. And so those things are satisfying my itching ears. I want to hear that because it feeds my emotion. Now let's look at verse 45 through verse 47. Now in verse 45 through verse 47, I want to read this again. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moshe, in whom you have set your expectation. For if you believed Moshe, you would have believed me, since he wrote about me. But if you do not believe, verse 47, his writing, talking about Moshe writing, if you don't believe Moshe writing, listen to what Mashiach is saying. He's saying, how shall you believe my words? Okay? Now, what is he? Now, what he's doing is actually addressing the religiousness behind it. Because what occurs here is that even within the Torah keeping community, sometimes we get such a simcha, such a joy out of just simply doing the Shabbat or simply doing the feast or something of that nature, when we are not actually walking in the goal of Torah, which is the Mashiach. The whole goal of the Torah was to reveal and to show you the Mashiach. And so that's a clear sign that Moshe is actually talking about the Messiah. Okay? Now, let's look at verse 43. We're going to back up and cover verse 43 like we did from the previous part 1 of this teaching of the Scripture Nugget. Messiah says this, I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you would receive. Again, Yahushua is addressing the replacement mindset. He uses the term, another coming in his own name. Now hear this, when we accept a vessel, when we accept a teaching that is different from what was spoken of by Moshe, we are actually accepting the anti-Messiah or anti-Mashiach message. How is that? Because the anti-Messiah comes in his own name instead of the name of the Father. Anytime a vessel or a teacher get more magnification than the Father, then he or she or it has come in their own name. Now, back in the review of Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15 through 18, what we found was that the Navi would be like Moshe. He was an Israelite and he was a Torah giver. Number 2, the Navi does what Moshe did, which was receive instructions directly from Yahuwah, directly from the Father. Now, I want to share with you a scripture nugget before we close. The key to understanding Scripture is watch the written word narrative. Number 2, when you do that, you will discover a pattern in Scripture. After you discover the pattern, thirdly, then the purpose of that Scripture will be revealed. How can I say that? In the book of Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 46, verse 10, the Father is speaking through the Navi Isaiah or Yeshayahu. He says he declares the end from the beginning, and from the old that which has not yet been done, saying, my counsel does stand, and all my delight I do. Again, watch the written word narrative, then you'll discover a pattern. Thirdly, after the pattern is discovered, then purpose will be revealed. So stay tuned as we continue to go deeper and deeper into the words of Messiah himself, Mashiach himself, to answer these two questions. Why are you still a Christian? And why are you still using the name Jesus? Shalom, shalom. See you next time on Scripture Nugget.